Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to contain my review of the latest Summon Showcase. It's another Gala Dragalia, this time around featuring Gala Reborn Jeanne d'Arc, as well as a new Light Lance adventure, Ryszarda. Ryszarda is one of the apostles of the Church of Grams in North Grastia, alongside Nevin and Pinon, who have been summonable in the past. And it looks like we're going to have to wait to be able to summon Ferris and possibly Gabriel and Basilius as well, since they were featured in the event preview, but they are not on this banner. Who knows if all of those will be summonable or just Ferris, but I do think some of them will be. And if you're wondering, Divine Deception comes out tomorrow, had a really cool event trailer, cool trailer for the banner as well, so definitely want to log in and check that out. Alright, so here's our character Ryszarda. Let's go ahead and head over to the banner page, and we'll try answer the question of whether or not you should summon on this. It is a Gala Dragalia showcase, so you are getting that initial 6% appearance rate for 5 stars. The only things featured here are Ryszarda and Gala Reborn Jeanne d'Arc. It remains to be seen what is going to be Worm Sigil eligible, but it is pointed out that Ryszarda will also appear in the next Summon Showcase. Usually that just means that Ryszarda is going to be part of the permanent summoning pool going forward. Who knows though, as of late, it could also mean that she is Worm Sigil eligible. You never know, they don't explicitly say that, but it could be possible if the next banner after this one is really themed around the Apostles and has Ferris and Gabriel, maybe they throw Ryszarda into the Sigil pool as well. So I think the decision on whether or not you should pull here should come down mainly to what your Light Dragons look like right now. If you have Daikokuten or Gala Thor, I think that you could possibly skip on this showcase, but I want to acknowledge Gala Reborn Jeanne will be an upgrade for both of those dragons, I believe. I think that the math I've seen points to around a 10% upgrade or so in DPS. Now with Daikokuten, it's a little bit trickier because of the attack rate buff zone that Daikokuten creates. That's going to scale well for team DPS contribution, so that's something that buffs everybody, including the Gala Reborn Jeanne users on your team. So if you're using Daikokuten, you may want one of those on a team, similar to how these days in the Wind element, you want to have one Midgard Stormer 0 and the rest Gala Reborn Zephyrs. So it could be a situation like that. And with Gala Thor, also, there are times when maybe he'll be better. If a character really relies upon energy like Lucretia, or maybe some characters like Gala Luca who have a really good critical rate and get critical rate on Gala Thor's attacking skill, that could also be a pretty decent combination. And Gala Luca also wants lots of buff icons, which the energy icons are. So I think that there's still a place for Gala Thor and Daikokuten, and both are probably still good enough that if you have those dragons, Gala Reborn Jeanne d'Arc is not necessarily a must-have, but I do think that she's an upgrade over both of those dragons as far as her damage potential. She has a similar aura to what we saw on Gala Reborn Poseidon and Gala Reborn Zephyr, and I expect, although don't know, but I expect that her dragon form, her combos and attacks when she is a dragon are going to be pretty good. They haven't given us a really bad Gala Reborn dragon yet, although at first it appeared that Poseidon was that way until really the last day of his showcase when buffs were acknowledged for him. So another thing to point out is that in the latest version update for Dragalia Lost, these Gala Reborn dragons have gotten better. Not only do they work well against the opposite element, they also work well against foes with no element, which would include Morsayati, so they do pretty good work in Morsayati Reckoning. I still haven't been able to really push down past like a 4-minute solo for that, but that's just where I'm hovering around. I don't know that this would necessarily change things because right now I don't use a light adventure in my solo team, but for co-op, if you want to bring a light adventure, I think that this could be a pretty cool option in that scenario as well. And then with Ryszarda, I don't see her as a reason to summon, but she does have an interesting kit. It's just hard to evaluate at a glance, so I think that there's some potential that she might work well in auto comps in the future, but I really think that the main decision here is around Gala Reborn Jeanne d'Arc. Alright, and as you know, the showcase lasts several days, this time into March, so if you are hesitant at all, unsure at all, you can wait until the last day of the showcase before you decide to pull. That way you at least have a preview of what's to come next. Okay, so let's start talking about Gala Reborn Jeanne first of all. I shall cut through doubt for the sake of a better future. Her portrait is just gorgeous. It's really beautiful. I think that's an excellent rendition of Jeanne d'Arc, so I really like that and admire how she was illustrated here. Probably the first reborn dragon that I just want to summon for appearance reasons. I think that Poseidon was close for me, but then Zephyr was kind of a miss. For whatever reason, I just didn't like the design of Zephyr that much. He still had that whole chicken element to him that just reminds me of Rock and High Jupiter. And I really like Gala Reborn Jeanne, so I'm honestly very tempted to summon despite not having a lot of good resources to do so right now. Okay, so her abilities, as I described earlier, are Strength plus 70% for Light Adventures, and then Light Oath of the Righteous 2. If the user is attuned to Light, adds 30% to the modifier applied to damage against Shadow Attune enemies and enemies with no attunement for 45 seconds every time the Dragon Gauge fills by 10%. The increase won't stack, and after activating the ability will not activate again for 5 seconds. So, in pretty much every element, like Reborn Poseidon, Zephyr, it's not a problem getting 10% Dragon Gauge every 45 seconds, and this doesn't stack. But in the light element in particular, it's even less of a problem because the light Agito weapons fill your Dragon Gauge with their attacking skill, so if that was ever a problem or consideration, or if there's like dragon delay happening, it's less of a problem here, I would think. But also very interesting about Gala Reborn Jeanne d'Arc, I mean, this combination of abilities alone, the 70% strength and 30% extra damage against Shadow Attuned or neutral, that's already excellent. So I think that that's the main reason that Gala Reborn Jeanne d'Arc is a good dragon. But then she has a very interesting skill here. So Holy Crusade deals damage to enemies directly ahead and increases the user's max HP. That is pretty nice. If the user is targeting an enemy and not using a skill when their remaining shapeshift time runs out, this skill will be used automatically regardless of whether or not the skill gauge is filled. So you get 2 uses, and every time you use it, you get max HP plus 10%. Now the max HP buffs, they cap out normally at 30%. So the first time you shapeshift, if you're able to land this skill twice, once by using it and once when your shapeshift runs out, that's already 20% out of that possible cap of 30, and the next time you shapeshift, you'll be able to cap it off and have a nice max HP buff on your character that shapeshifted. So I think that's actually a pretty cool defensive utility here, especially as we've moved into the world of auto shapeshifting. Not that you necessarily, want to put Gala Reborn Jeanne on your auto teams, but like if you can't auto with Gold Fafnirs or aren't soloing with Gold Fafnirs or whatever the case may be, this is actually kind of a little bit of extra defensive utility on a lead auto character that is going to shapeshift, so I do kind of like that. And it is rare, but it's possible, so I'll point this out. It's possible for the second attack to not go off. And particular against Tartarus, when he does those dive kicks where he flies off the stage, that is a scenario where you actually couldn't target him. And so if your shapeshift gauge runs out at that particular moment, that is the time when you wouldn't get the second use, and therefore you wouldn't get the second max HP buff either. Another thing with this is usually when you've capped out on max HP buffs, then this type of effect heals you thereafter. So this could also be a little bit of personal healing once you've shapeshifted twice or potentially 3 times if you missed with one or both of your skill uses. So yeah, I think that Gala Reborn Jeanne's a really interesting dragon. Very powerful, interesting defensive utility, potentially. The question is, when are we going to need this strong of a light dragon? And it might be sooner than you think, because although Legend Tartarus, based on the release schedule for Legend, is still a ways off, because it seems like they're going through every Agito in the order it was released, meaning it would likely be Ciela next, followed by a time attack for Ciela, followed by Twins, followed by a time attack for Twins, and then finally Tartarus, and last up his time attack to end out the Agito cycle. Well, he'd be at the end, but we do know at the beginning of March, we're getting Lilith's Encroaching Shadow. That's March 5th, and this banner lasts until March 2nd, so it's very possible we're going to have a preview of Lilith's Encroaching Shadow before this banner ends. I would definitely stay tuned with regards to that, because based on her name, or the name of her trial, Lilith's Encroaching Shadow, could be Shadow Element. At least one part of that fight could be Shadow Element, where you'd want to bring, or maybe even be required to use, Light Adventurers and Light Dragons. If that's the case, and in particular for solo, where you'd need 4 different adventurers outfitted, then maybe even if you have Gala Thor and Daikokuten, adding on Gala Reborn Jeanne is a pretty nice upgrade to your team. Another thing to think about with the Rise of the Sinister Dominion, I don't think it's yet clear. I'm pretty sure for co-op, the way that it would work is that you have only your lead adventurer on each of the teams going into battle, but we've also never had, outside of Morsiati Reckoning, an endgame raid. Maybe in co-op as well as in solo, you need a full team of 4 adventurers for Rise of the Sinister Dominion. Now, that doesn't seem particularly likely. I think we would know about that if that were the case, but it could happen. That is something potentially viable, because they do require you to switch teams, and they mention having 2 full teams. So I think likely it's just going to be your lead character effectively for co-op purposes. But in that scenario, then you want to have a lot of good light dragons, right? So I think that we'll know more in the next couple days, but it's possible we may be able to wait until Legend Tartarus, where we really need strong light adventurers and dragons. It's also possible it could be as soon as really next week or the week after, so who knows what Lilith's Encroaching Shadow will be like. I'm very excited for that content, but even just this week with the Omega difficulty, level 3 for the Waltz with Fate rerun, I was finding that to be pretty tough with the current slate of light adventurers. Obviously, a lot of people cleared it with other element adventurers as well, and some people who had access to stronger dragons cleared it relatively quickly with light element characters, but still it's certainly not that easy. It's one of the harder Omegas we've had in a while, so it seems like the Dragalia devs are actually pushing the difficulty a little bit more, and maybe part of the reason for that is to incentivize us to go for some of these stronger dragons. Anyway, that's really all I have to say on Gala Reborn Jeanne d'Arc. Love her artwork, love her portrait here. I think she's an excellent dragon. I wish I had the resources to easily summon for her, but I'm also thinking ahead to the 2.5-year anniversary, possibility of Gala Knot, possibility of another Fire Emblem or other collab in April, and it's hard to justify going for it when I don't even have enough resources to spark in the worst case. Okay, so moving on from Gala Reborn Jeanne d'Arc, let's now talk about Ryszarda here. So also very cool portrait here. So she's really tall and muscular. It's even pointed out in her description. Her musculature is mentioned, that her muscular frame belies a timid heart. So cool design, unlike many other characters that we have in the game. And in her full portrait, you can sort of see a lance here in the front. I think this is actually like a tail, so I don't really know if she's Sylvan or what she is. I am the Apostle Ryszarda, one hand of the goddess, light lance user. At first I thought maybe she'd use a whip similar to Panther, because we have seen lances work in that way. Obviously her fists also look charged up, so it looked kind of like that she might be more of a brawler character, and maybe she is. So I haven't seen a trailer with actual gameplay of her. I saw the trailer on YouTube for the showcase as a whole, where they show her 3D model, but they didn't really show her fighting. So I'll get into my theories around what I think she'll do as we move through her kit, but I do think that she may have a non-standard attack playstyle once you unlock her sigil and release it. So let's read on. Her first skill is Clement's Punishment. It's shareable at a cost of 5. It deals damage to enemies directly ahead and inflicts flash burn. So, raise the alarm that maybe we'll finally get a flash burn Punisher Wormprint. As of now, we don't have one, but they've slowly been adding these Gen 2 Affliction Punisher Wormprints. Like, we got our Stormlash Punisher Wormprint, we got our Scorchrend Punisher Wormprint, we've had our Frostbite Punisher Wormprint for a while. So now that we have our second adventure besides Ilya that causes flash burn, maybe this event will be the time that they introduce the Flashburn Punisher Wormprint to the Wormprint shop. If that's the case, cool. This is our second source of Flashburn. The Paralysis Punisher Wormprint caps out at 20%. It's also not the most reliable. A lot of bosses, as we saw with Thanatos recently, resist Paralysis, so maybe this will be effective. Paralysis, I think, also has weirdly a lower chance of hitting during break. I think that is actually a thing in the code. I don't know why that's the case, but Paralysis has been treated very bizarrely. Also in the Mercurial Gauntlet, Roy starts off with 80% Paralysis res instead of 0% for burn, etc. So paralysis unfortunately just isn't all that great. I think maybe it has to do with when High Zodiac first came out and people could paralyze it and then spin it. So maybe the motion debilitating effect of paralysis, the devs are very wary of how that affects bosses or something, I don't know. But for whatever reason, paralysis has kind of had the short end of the stick, so maybe Flash Burn will become a new meta option. Maybe it'll be a double Punisher situation. Otherwise, just looks like a standard attacking skill with decent damage, pretty low SP cost there, so seems reasonable enough. Her second skill, Lentis Oracle, restores HP to the user and grants them the Raphael's Embrace effect, and it has a recovery potency of 90, pretty solid. You sometimes see things as low as 30, so 108 is what I remember being sort of standard for like healers, just team-wide heal skills, so 90 is actually pretty reasonable. Relatively high SP cost, but she does get this 30-second buff, Raphael's Embrace. Critical rate goes up by 15%, and she has knockback immunity, which could be interesting. So I think that is maybe... I'm trying to think about whether that's a good or bad thing in the context of Tartarus. So sometimes knockback immunity can hurt you because you don't fall down, and then you end up taking more hits as a result. I think maybe in the punishment waves phase and resentment arrows, like that could potentially be a drawback. So Julieta also has this knockback immunity, but I haven't experimented enough to really know whether this is actually positive or negative. In other types of fights, it's definitely negative at times, so not sure on that, whether that will be a good thing or bad thing. Potentially a good thing, normally it would be a good thing because you can finish your combos and generate more SP and cast your skills more, but if there are moves that punish that or opportunize on you staying upright and not falling down in response to taking damage, then this could also be a bad thing, so have to see exactly how that plays out. Her co-ability is HP plus 15%, and her chain co-ability is HP recovery equals strength plus 8%, so a more exotic chain co-ability here. If a team member is attuned to light, increases their strength by 8% for 15 seconds when their HP is restored. So one thing about this, and then it won't activate again for 10 seconds, so you could potentially stack it. One thing about this that I don't know is, does your HP have to actually be restored, or could you be healed at full HP and you still get this benefit? Does that make sense? So does your HP have to have fallen and then go up, or can you just receive a heal even though you're already healthy? That could actually make a little bit of a difference here. So if you have to be unhealthy, maybe you have to take some hits intentionally. Anyway, for abilities, similar space as to the Chainco ability, but Raphael's Covenant 2 inflicts the Lock Sigil debuff on the user at the start of quest for 300 seconds, and grants the user a unique Force Strike that cannot deal damage, but activates the Raphael Steel effect for 20 seconds. During Raphael's Steel, the user's strength is increased by 15%, and their attack rate is increased by 10%. Well, that attack rate increase is really nice. Strength increase, not bad either. So 20 seconds, so you can juggle it and make sure you have full uptime, because you just have the Force Strike to do it. But having 10% extra attack rate is going to mean you're charging your skills faster, so that's good. Lock Sigil's remaining time will be reduced by 30 seconds when the user's HP is restored, and it will be reduced by an additional 15 seconds when their HP is restored by 1,000 or more. After activating, this won't activate again for 20 seconds. Alright, so still going to take a while to eat into 300 seconds total. I think that's my big takeaway here. Like, pin on as of now, because Gabriel's not released yet, it takes her a really long time to unlock her sigil. And with Nevin, it's actually pretty much immediate because of Ramiel existing. So I'm just trying to think about what Raphael could do. Like, when her dragon comes out, is it going to just continuously heal her for 1,000 damage every 20 seconds or something as part of its aura? Like, she's going to need some way to ramp up for this to be really good. And again, I'm thinking here that it would still work even if her HP is full and you heal for 1,000 and your HP is already full. I hope so, because if you actually have to intentionally fall down by 1,000 HP, that's not that easy to do. So I hope it still works when your HP is full. When the Lock Sigil effect wears off, The user will be granted the sigil released effect instead. During that, continually tapping the screen at the end of the standard attack combo will charge the final attack up to 3 stages, with damage reaching its maximum potential at stage 3. At stage 3, this attack will also be granted the ability to dispel 1 enemy buff. Alright, well that's actually kind of cool, because Dispel in the Light Element is rare. It's only really on Luca, I believe. So that's actually kind of cool. But, obviously what's unsaid here is, what is the damage modifier on this? So this is going to be a character that when she releases, you're going to definitely want to head over to the wiki page, so I will include a link in the description so you can do that. But you're definitely going to want to read through exactly how she works. She definitely looks like a more complicated character here. And this is what I was talking about earlier with maybe having some more melee combos using her fist as a brawler. I think maybe when her sigil is released, her standard attacks change from those of a lance to be just more brawling type combos. You could see that her fists are enhanced here with some type of aura, and then I'm not sure what's on her left hand there, but yeah, that looks pretty cool. So I hope that's the case, but we'll have to see. Her other abilities are Curse Res 100%, which is good. Curse always seems to last a long time when it happens. Poison can be kind of annoying too, though, and poison can be scaled in such a way that it's not the case for Tartarus, but like let's say Lilith causes poison. Poison can be significant enough that it, they could balance it to where it ticks you down to 1 HP every time. That's how Brynhilda's Burn works. And poison so far has been more generous than that. It hasn't really ticked you down to 1, but that could certainly be the case with the next wave of bosses, who knows. So poison's something to be aware of because it's also not easy to heal, but I think Curse Res is fine. You can also build in poison immunity if you want to via Worm Prince, and now we're going to have more Worm Prince slots also. Raphael's Protection 2 grants all team members other than the user a life shield, okay, equal to 30% of the user's max HP when the user takes damage during sigil release. After activating, it won't activate again for 60 seconds. Interesting. Okay, so it only works during sigil release, which means you're 300 seconds into the quest, or 300 seconds minus 30 for every time you've gotten this effect, or maybe minus 45 if you're healed for 1,000 or more. Life shields are really good, and even a 30% max HP life shield, I've been extremely impressed with Ronzel's life shields. I use Ronzel and Marciati Reckoning for my free-to-play welfare team with Audric, Aoi, and Cleo. And even Ronzel's small life shield is really good in that environment because of how it blocks afflictions and just makes the team swim and work really smoothly. So I don't think this is a small bonus. I think this is actually a pretty substantial bonus. But then the 60-second cooldown after you've waited 300 seconds, maybe less, to even get this working, and you have to take damage, I don't know. What I'm seeing here is that maybe Ryszarda has potential in auto battle, but against Tartarus also for expert difficulty and standard, you can't heal easily. Actually, even in Master, you have to go through one portal to heal. So you're not going to be getting big 1,000 chunk heals. You might get 1 HP heals. Maybe you can use regen, like a double buff heal. And at the least, every 30 seconds, you're going to get, or every 20 seconds, you're going to get a 30-second reduction, which is something. But I don't know. It feels a little too slow when you think about the length of the quest itself. And I have to say, I have been trying a little bit as far as auto setups now that we have our dragon transformation, so I can share the setup I'm working on right now. I don't have a lot of stamina, so I haven't actually been able to test these. Expert here. So I haven't been able to test these. I don't think that they're high clear percentage, but this team was able to clear a couple times for me today, and it's 4 gold Fafnir on full auto. I think that this dragon scales is really nice for auto now that we have shapeshift enabled, because it gives you a lot of extra defensiveness on your lead character. But in Tartarus, sometimes your lead switches because you get imprisoned. So this was not a completely successful comp, But I'm just trying to think about, would Ryszarda improve things? Could she be slot in here to make things better? And I think she probably could be. I think she could probably replace somebody like Peony and maybe go in the 3rd slot instead of the 4th. So I have 3 melee here, HP co-ability, because I don't think I need the light damage necessarily from Peony to clear in time, because I was clearing with like 2 minutes left or 3 minutes left. So I do think that Ryszarda has potential. It's just a little bit hard to evaluate, really, without seeing how she actually does in practice. So I don't think I can render as firm a verdict on her. But Gala Reborn Jeanne d'Arc, I think, is clearly a reason to summon if you need to power up your light dragon. So I would say use that as your main motivator on the showcase, as the reason that you make your decision, with Ryszarda potentially having some upside as well. If I manage to pull her, I would definitely want to test her out further. But I don't know. I'm looking at this. I just think it might be too slow to get going. Maybe not. So this is 5 minutes that you have to wait. And let's say you're healing every 20 seconds, right? So in 1 minute of the fight, you clear off an additional 90 seconds. In 2 minutes, you clear off 180 seconds. So maybe you could get this done in as quickly as 2 minutes. That's sort of what I'm seeing here, because that would be 120 seconds and you've cleared off 180 by healing every 20 seconds. That seems really tight, but in my auto setup that I just showed, that got to phase 2 like maybe 2 or 3 minutes into the fight. So it didn't happen immediately. So if she was in her special form, Sigil released by phase 2 and then gave me some life shields, like that actually sounds kind of sweet. I don't know. That sounds kind of sweet, but of course, you're not going to be getting these big mega heals at the beginning, but with the gold Fafnir's, you do get frequent heals in that, because in the light element, you're constantly getting Dragon Gauge from your Agito skills. It actually might work. It actually weirdly might work. The thing is, there are other auto comps, and I feel like we're just at the discovery phase thanks to Dragon Transformation being enabled. There are already some excellent auto comps posted for Tartarus by Taya, so I'm going to link to those as well in the description if you want to check those out, that were before the Dragon Transformation, and they're like 90% success for Expert Tartarus. So now I think that we know that's doable, and the question is, with this Dragon Transformation, can you go from a 4 regular dragon consistent auto to a 4 gold Fafnir consistent auto, or at least 3 gold Fafnir? And I think the answer is going to be yes, but I haven't cracked the code myself. I don't know exactly how to pull it off, but I feel like some of you out there may, and somebody will probably discover a way to do it, and maybe Ryszarda will actually show up in that. I'm not sure. Little too soon for me to make a firm judgment on her, but this showcase looks really tempting. I like both of the things that are featured here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to summon because I just have so few resources left. I'm seriously considering it and just hoping to get lucky, because if I want both Gala Knot and the things on the showcase, I think I'm going to need a little bit of luck anyway. Plus, we usually get pretty generous rewards for the half anniversary, so maybe I could luck out on Gala Knot. I don't know what I'm going to do, but anyway, y'all, that is going to do it for today. So I hope you enjoyed this look at our new summon showcase. Thank you as always for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Take care, and I'll see you next time.